Hello, PreCalculus. Welcome back. Here's number 5. We've got y is equal to sine of 4x minus pi minus 4. All right, for this one, is there a reflection? No, I don't have a negative sign out front, nor do I have any amplitude changer, so my amplitude is just 1. I do have a period changer, so my period is 2 pi. It says to multiply it by 4, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide by 4. So that would be pi over 2 for my period. My phase shift, I know a lot of you were looking at this today and you're saying the phase shift is to the right pi. I would agree it is to the right. Really what needs to happen here is that 4 is going to be pulled out. It has to be factored out. So this would be 4 times x. This would have to be minus pi over 4 because 4 times this guy would cancel out the 4's and I'd be left with a minus pi. So in order for this guy to really be my period changer, I'd have to factor it out. And so this is really what my phase is shifting by. It says to the left pi over 4, we're going to go to the right pi over 4. So your phase shift is always, of course, do the opposite of what this says and then divide by whatever your period changer was, whatever that horizontal shift or compression was. We don't do a good job of explaining that really well in Algebra 2. I think we hit on it a little bit earlier with some of our other functions, but there it is for you guys. Our vertical shift for this one is down 4, which means our midline is going to be down at negative 4. So when I go to graph this guy, the first thing I'm going to do is put that midline on, so I know at least where I'm centered vertically. My amplitude is up 1, down 1, so that's not a big deal. My phase shift, though, is pi over 4. Now, this is a sine function which starts at our midline. So I'm going to go over to pi over 4, which is right here. If this is pi over 2, half of pi over 2 is pi over 4, and that's going to be the midline. Now, my period is pi over 2, so I need to complete sine pi over 2 from here. So this is pi over 4 plus another pi over 4. That's pi over 2 away from my original point. So I've got to complete an entire period between pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4 because that period has to be done in pi over 2. Now, some people were having a hard time understanding how I get there. Well, I know I'm starting at pi over 4 and my period's going to be done in pi over 2. So to find that ending point where the period would end, I've got to add 2 to it, or add pi over 2 to it. So my common denominator here would be 4. This would be 2 pi over 4. So then I know my period has to end by 3 pi over 4, which is what I have here. So for sine, remember, it's going to go up, it's going to go back to the midline, down, and back to the midline. So this guy here is going to be my midpoint. And we're going up 1 and down 1. So halfway between those two is up, halfway between these two is down. So there's one full cycle of this function. Now I can continue this by completing that pattern. Once we get one cycle phase down in there, it becomes easier to graph the rest of them. And kind of see what the sine curve is supposed to look like, and we can maybe, we don't get too crazy, we can replicate it. And these ones that have the phase change and a phase shift are the most challenging. Okay, I think I may be way off now. But they're the most challenging. No, that's not bad. Most challenging for students to graph, or teachers for that matter. This is not the best graph I've ever drawn, but you get the idea of what it's supposed to look like there. What's the domain for any trig function, or sorry, any sine or cosine function? Negative infinity to positive infinity. Our range for this one is negative 5 to negative 3. All right, I think we've got one more, number 7. We'll have 2 horizontal changes at the same time, so we'll look at that one again. But for now, we're going to go on to 6. That's y equals 3 cosine pi over 4x minus 2. All right, is there a negative out front? No, so we do not have a reflection. We're going to start up at our 1, go down, and then back up, because that's the cosine curve, right? Amplitude, we do have an amplitude changer of 3, so we're going to go 3 above the midline, 3 below the midline. Do I have a period changer? I do. So normal period is 2 pi. I'm going to divide that guy by pi over 4, which essentially means we're going to multiply it by its reciprocal. We're going to do the opposite of what it says. It says to multiply by pi over 4. Instead, we're going to multiply by 4 over pi. Notice your pi's cancel this time, and that threw a lot of you guys off, and I totally get it. But our period for this one's going to be 8. If you notice, they were nice enough on our graph, they changed these numbers to whole numbers here instead of the radians we had going on over here. Our phase shift, we don't have anything in parentheses behind this guy, so no phase shift, which is nice. It's nice to either have a period changer or a phase changer, but not both. Do, however, expect to see one on your test. It may be a bonus, but you'll definitely have one on there. Your vertical shift is going to be down 2, which means your midline is going to be at y equals -2. All right, so let's go draw that midline on. This is a cosine function. Here's our midline. That just tells us what our sine or our cosine curve is going to be centered around. Our period is 8. We don't have a phase shift, so we're starting here at 0. So between 0 and 8, I need 1 full cycle of cosine. My amplitude is 3, so instead of starting here at -1, which is 1 above, I'm going to start 3 above my midline. So 1, 2, 3. Means we're at 1. Halfway between these two, I need to be down at the bottom point. So down 1, 2, 3. And then at 8, we got to be back up. And then halfway between these two is when we're crossing that midline. So it looks like every 2 is how far we're spaced out here. And then here we should be at midline, down to that -5, midline, 1, midline, -5. Alright, so it's going to look something along like that. It was a little straight there at the end, but overall not too bad. It should be more like that to get it to curve back up. All right, that's 5 and 6. Come back, we'll do 7 and 8 on the last video. Tomorrow we're going to do 8 more of these in class, so hopefully you've taken a chance to figure out how to do these and you'll be prepared for tomorrow.